They say that elephants don't forget. We're going to meet some people who hope a certain car company doesn't forget why they buy their cars. That's this week on Motoring 99.
TSN's Motoring 99 is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oils, formulated for the vehicles you drive and the way you drive them. And Midas Car Care, the way it should be.
There's an old adage in television that says you can't go wrong with kids and animals. It's a winning combination. We'll find out maybe this week if that's true. Hello everybody and welcome to Motoring 99. Now we certainly have no shortage of animals here at the Toronto Metro Zoo, and we've got lots of kids. But I know what you're saying, Brad, who cares? We want to see some cars. Well, funny you should mention that, because these kids all have something in common. Their parents drive the same make of vehicle. It's a Saturn. Well, what are they doing here? We're going to find out this week and also investigate the rumor that Saturn could be suffering an identity crisis in the near future.
Let's start sending them down the road. I'll send them down to you if you want to send the first car to the back of the road, and that way we can curb park them all.
Saturn reunion? How are you?
Saturn reunion lunch tickets.
How many people?
Saturn reunion lunch tickets. Come and see me.
The Metro Zoo was only one of 50 Saturn events taking place across Canada on this day. But the Toronto event was by far the largest, with an estimated 9,000 Saturns and their owners.
There's a variety of events. We're building 17 different playgrounds across Canada, but there's a total of 50 projects, as I said, and they vary anything from building a playground to developing ecological parks. But it's part of Saturn's philosophy. We believe it's important for us to give something back to the community through our owners, and that's what it's all about.
When Saturn hit the scene back in 1992, it was about General Motors' desire to take on these small car imports and grab customers who otherwise wouldn't be caught dead in a domestic showroom, including General Motors.
Driving down the highway singing honeymoon and lovers kiss and drive a Saturn tonight.
But then something very strange occurred. This domestic economy car was attracting an almost cult following by Saturn owners. For example, 1995, thousands of owners traveled from as far away as Alaska to check out the Saturn factory in Spring Hill, Tennessee.
Beep, beep.
Saturn number one.
That was followed a year later by another Saturn love-in, this time at the drive-in theaters across the country.
Do you have anything for vegetarians?
No, sorry, we don't.
But back to the zoo and the question, why would all these people spend a sunny summer's day hanging out, eating warmed-up hot dogs, and listening to Saturn executives make speeches?
And enjoy the rest of the day.
You're old enough to have developed a real cynicism for car manufacturers.
No.
What brings you out here?
I enjoy my Saturn, and I enjoy being in the company of Saturn people. I'm on the internet with the Saturn and the news groups and that, and they're a good bunch of people. They like their cars. A lot of them have done over 250,000 miles in the States. And I can't say much. You know, I've had mine a little over a year now. Great vehicle. And some cars, the love affair is gone in a couple of months or something like that type of thing. But not with a Saturn. It stays.
Well, I'm a Saturn owner. I've had 2 Saturn cars. And to me, the whole Saturn philosophy is the way they treat their customers. They make you feel very welcomed when you go into the showroom, but then after that, once you purchase the car, they make sure they know who you are, first name basis.
When I went to look around for other cars, I remember I came across some not too nice salespeople. They were very pushy and arrogant. When I went to Saturn, it was a different experience. They were very laid back, low key. They didn't push me around.
You talk to these people. They're lovely people. You get the feeling they're victims of some kind of propaganda scam or something, but they're actually for real. I mean, you find that hard to believe?
Yes, certainly the enthusiasm that Saturn buyers have for the brand is quite unique.
Well, I know some people refer to it as a love, and I think what we've accomplished is we treat people with respect. We treat people the way they like to be treated. We feel for our customers. We go beyond just selling them a car. It's a different way to sell cars. I think we've proven that we can be successful doing it this way, and certainly our customers are telling us they enjoy the experience.
But that experience might be in jeopardy as General Motors continues to move hundreds of Saturn product engineers over to GM.
To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense that GM would want to consolidate Saturn. It would make more sense to me even if they shared a platform or components with other GM models, to keep the rest of it separate and certainly keep the perception separate that Saturn is a different car.
When customers come across the threshold of a Saturn facility, it's a different experience. And I know that all of the management organization within Saturn Corporation, Saturn Canada, our Saturn retailers, and all of their retail team members, we're going to ensure that we maintain the integrity of that different experience.
Like the gymnast, eh?
I think Saturn should stay as Saturn, a separate subsidiary of General Motors. Yes, give it granted for that. Nice that General Motors come up with the idea. However, I'd like to see it stay as a separate individual automobile, not cloned to another General Motors car.
Will it still retain the sort of enthusiasm that we see here today? Really like what Saturn is doing. I just hope they don't lose all the momentum they've got now.
It's a silver Saturn. Every now and again you need a little help. Well, this week on Test Drive we sure do, because we picked up a flat right at the beginning of the test drive. Now, without this vehicle coming with a full-size spare tyre, we'd have been sunk and had to ditch the rest of the day. So thank you, Suzuki, you saved it. You know, for the past 25 years, Suzuki has had the Mini Ute market all to themselves. Then came Subaru, Honda and Toyota. Well, on this edition of Test Drive, we take a look at their response to those three vehicles. This is the all-new Grand Vitara. Without question, the Grand Vitara's highlight is its swanky new 24-valve double overhead cam 2.5-litre V6 engine. In the past, Suzuki have produced some motors that sounded and functioned like a tractor engine. This new 6 is as sweet as a nut. It's refined, it loves to rev and never gets noisy in the process. With 155 horses and 160 pounds-feet of torque available, the Grand scoots off the line in a lively fashion, allows you to pass slower traffic with confidence and to saunter up steep grades with the greatest of ease. Matched with this motor is a 4-speed automatic transmission that slips through the gears seamlessly. It also features power and normal modes as well as an on-off button for the overdrive. To get from 2 to 4-wheel drive, it's just a matter of nudging the lever, and you can do that at speeds up to 100 kilometers an hour. When it comes time to dump the urban boredom and go and have some serious fun, you simply stop, select neutral, across the gate, in, now we're ready to go. The Grand's new body is considerably stiffer than the old sidekicks thanks to its fully boxed ladder frame. This newfound rigidity is particularly welcome off-road. There are fewer creaks and groans, and the new suspension does not inflict as much punishment on you or your passengers as it has in the past. Up front is a straight McPherson strut design with a sway bar. In back, a new 5-link solid axle configuration. Not only is the ride compliant, soaking up all but the largest of bumps, there is less of that familiar pitching motion that's been the hallmark of all small SUVs. The other item worthy of note is the new rack and pinion steering system. It, combined with the large 235/60 tyres, delivers a fast response to input and a decent on-centre feel. The Grand Vitara is a decent little off-roader. Not only does it have a low-range gear set, it's got skid plates, a decent cross brace which adds rigidity when you start torquing the body through the ruts, and this thing, that's the breather for the front axle. That allows you to go through water without damaging it. By the looks of it, pretty deep water at that. You know, the interior of the Vitara has been very well thought through, and it comes with a lot of standard stuff: power locks, windows, mirrors, air conditioning, and a half-decent radio. But therein lies the rub. It's recessed into a little tiny cubbyhole. That and the fact that the buttons are tiny make it the single biggest flaw with this new vehicle. A common problem with all of these mini utes is they mount the rear door on the wrong side of the vehicle. First of all, if you're unloading with your back to traffic. The second thing, to get this bag from here to the curb, you've got to go around the door. Now this is North America. Why not mount it on the proper side? Stopping power comes from a front disc rear drum design that's equipped with standard anti-lock. During the brake test, the system hauled the Grand to a halt in 115 feet from 80k. Kudos for the pedal feel and the ease with which it can be modulated. The Mini Ute segment now has a new benchmark by which all others must be judged, and that is the Grand Vitara. It handles well, it rides well, and it's exceptionally good off-road, primarily because of the low-range gear set. But the icing on the cake comes in the form of that dreamy V6.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns changing a tail lamp bulb. Getting the lamp assembly out of the car is usually your biggest problem, and it can be really frustrating. On today's cars, in all likelihood, you're not going to see any screws on the lamp assembly. If you do, you've got a pretty old car. Most of today's cars have a set of plastic wing nuts inside the trunk. Once you've removed the lamp assembly, just tilt it aside, go in behind and depress the tabs on the lamp sockets. You'll hear them click, and give them a quarter turn to come out. Now once you get them out, in order to remove the bulb from the socket, you usually just grasp the bulb, push in a little bit, and turn it counterclockwise and then pull it out. Now that grease that you see on the base of the bulb needs to be transferred to the new one, and then just reverse the procedure to put it back in. Obviously we're going to replace this bulb because it's so blackened and burned, even though it's still lit. Now you'll find another style of bulb in the back of the car as well, what we call a bayonet base that just pushes in and pulls out just like this. And some cars will have this bayonet-based bulb on all their tail lamps. This one has a mixture of the two. While you're in there, check all the other bulbs in the back of the car in that lamp assembly while you've got it out, and replace any others that look to be bad. That's your Midas tip of the week.
There we go. Still number one, boys. It was that time of the year again, the Big Brothers Soapbox Derby for the Midas Cup. This year, Motoring's Bill Gardner and Graham Fletcher were back to defend the title.
This is a great event, and this is our fourth year, and we really do enjoy being a part of it. I've never driven in these things before. In fact, I did a lot to try and get out of this. Somehow I seem to have got drafted this year, and I'm not too happy, but I'll do it.
All set, Bill. We're ready.
Okay, in lane one, we have TSN's Motoring 98 with Bill Gardner.
With first place on the line, Bill was off for the first of two runs. Notice the right-hand action? The judges missed it.
Let's go, Bill Gardner. Let's go, Gardner. Come on. Go, Gardner. Come on, Billy.
Up, please.
Bill would go on to win and give Motoring the series lead in front of Midas Canada.
Well, today's an exciting day. It's the culmination of a two-step derby. We began 2 weekends ago at Hyde Park with the Soapbox Derby, the Gravity Grand Prix, and today is here at the go-kart track, and it's a very exciting day for us.
Driver change. You're there. Get going. Get going.
Yeah, this is a race that takes a lot of teamwork. Won or lost in the pits, where precision timing is everything.
I also took a lap around the track, so I know what you're up against there, and although these cars seem to be equally prepared, we know the TSN motoring guys who have been in first place brought a screwdriver with them. They've been frisked at the door, and now we know that they are equally prepared. Well, pretty close.
Well, we tried to figure out which is the quickest kart here, but it's kind of hard to tell. Some of them were getting kind of beat up and tired, but we took a couple out that are pretty quick, and we switched sides and raced against each other to try and figure out which one was the fastest. And there's quite a difference in our weight between Graham and I, so we switched karts and found one that seems to be pretty good. Actually, we found two that are pretty good, and it's a toss-up between them. Either one will do pretty well, I think.
Well, we come in today at the top of the standings, so we intend to stay there. And the basic thing today, 2 laps of the course, 1 driver change in between. Hopefully, all goes well, we'll progress through the preliminaries and make the final race and claim #1 spot again.
We're going, baby.
But with the race about to begin, it appears Graham is caught daydreaming at the wheel.
Yeah, so tell me the overall standings now, what you can gather. Have you got a chance?
No, we're at. As far as the standings, I don't think we're in with a hope in Hades, because our kart keeps stalling. No excuses, but didn't help matters.
Well,
so I think we've lost it, maybe.
It was for a good cause.
Oh, it's for a wonderful cause. And you know, the thing is that the guys that organise this do such a good job. I wish them all the best in their endeavours to sign up Big Brothers, because the little brothers truly do deserve it.
We're back here at the Toronto Metro Zoo, and you know, it's not only the kids that enjoy the animals, us adults get a pretty good kick out of it too. In fact, there's one guy I know who would love to be here this afternoon. In fact, he spends a lot of time talking to the animals. That's Bill Gardner. Bill?
Well, Brad, I don't know if I need to go to the zoo. Lately, the critters have been coming to me. I don't know if I need to go to them. Anyhow, this week we want to talk about emergency brake cables, and we've got a car in the hoist that's got a broken one. Pretty good example of what goes wrong with these kind of things. Remember that when you step on the brake pedal in your car, you're hydraulically applying the brakes on all 4 wheels. But when you engage the parking brake or emergency brake, you're mechanically applying the brakes on the rear wheels only via a series of cables underneath the car. You can see that on this car, this cable right here, which should be attached right there, has chafed and corroded, and it's broken. It was touching this bracket here, which is normal, and that accelerates the wear in the cable, and eventually it breaks. Now, if I pull this mechanism, you can see that the other rear brake cable on this car is still functional. It's moving in and out the way it should, and it doesn't seem to be frayed or corroded too badly. There's the adjuster for adjusting the pedal height after you've replaced the cables, and this is the cable that we're going to have to replace, the one going to the left rear wheel in this car. You can see the cable disappearing back into the drum brake mechanism. Now, whether the car has disc brakes or drum brakes on the rear, it's still going to have a series of cables applying them, and they're going to look just very much like this one, and they're subject to a lot of abuse because they're underneath the body of the car. There's our new emergency brake cable. Down at the very end, you can see the lug that locks it to the rear brake mechanism. This is the spring that's going to help to release the cable after you trip the release, and that little spring is going to snap the cable back. There's the inner portion of the cable, the part that actually moves. That's the stranded inner cable, and there's our outer jacket portion of the cable that locks into the rear backing plate on this car. Series of little tabs that help to lock it into place, and a rubber cover on it to prevent it from rattling against the floor of the car and give it a little bit of protection against the elements. Over here, another series of tabs here to lock it into the adjuster, and here's our inner portion, the stranded portion that actually moves. On this car, the inner stranded part of the cable is coated with plastic to try and limit the corrosion and make for a slick surface so that it releases easily. However, this plastic can work against you when the car gets old. It chips and cracks, and it can actually jam the cable in the outer jacket because it's a pretty tight clearance between the inner and outer. Now, a couple of things that you should get in the habit of doing with emergency brakes. Use them on a regular basis. Keep them lubricated periodically, and when you apply them really solidly so that you can't possibly drive the car away with the thing half dragging or half applied. And if you apply it good and firm from time to time, if you've got a frayed or damaged cable, that's when you're going to break it, just as this car did here. You want to break it when the car's at rest. Periodically, apply it good and solidly. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 99.
Ah, the sweet smell of health. That's coming up next on Kenzie's Corner. You see them in every city in the world, the joggers and the bikies. They're out there pumping away for the good of their health, fill their lungs with that clean, fresh air. Who are they kidding? They'd be better off sucking on a tailpipe. The exhaust gases coming out of modern passenger cars are cleaner than the air that's going in. Sure, the cars are better, but what about these big diesel trucks, the beat-up taxi cabs, and those horrible buses belching diesel fumes everywhere? Even if you're jogging in some leafy green suburb, that guy cutting his lawn is cranking out more pollution from his lawnmower in 2 hours than your passenger car is doing all year. Now, I always say if you're concerned about your health, get into a car, roll the windows up, flick on the air conditioning, and if it's got a Micron air filter that screens out the pollutants, well, that's even better. And if you get behind one of these big guys, you flick the recirculation button. Absolutely passenger cars for respiratory health. Oh, by the way, you bikies, those Lycra shorts, don't go there. I'm Jim Kenzie.
You know, as we saw earlier, everybody had a marvelous time at the Saturn reunion. But you know, you can create a major problem when you get 8,000 or 9,000 people together all driving the same vehicle. And that problem becomes obvious when you head to the parking lot to go home and you forgot where you parked your car. Anyway, I'd like to stick around and watch the excitement later on, but we're out of time. But we will be back next week as usual. We continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
But what our dealers are telling us and what our research is telling us is that this is what in the industry is known as our conquest vehicle. In other words, the sales or the people who are coming in are people that we have never seen in a BMW dealership before.
TSN's Motoring 99 has been brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oils, formulated for the vehicles you drive and the way you drive them, and Midas Car Care, the way it should be.